Hello, everyone. John, Homelander. Just Homelander.
This scene peels back the polished, terrifying surface of Homelander and shows us something deeper, something broken and tragic beneath the godlike persona. When Homelander walks into the lab with a cake in his hand, it's not a simple visit or a moment of nostalgia. It's a confrontation with the foundation of his trauma. The lab is not just a building, it is the prison where his identity was manufactured, where his humanity was stripped away and replaced with a mask, one he has worn so long that even he can't separate it from his skin. The cake is a strange gesture. On the surface, it looks like he's trying to celebrate something, or pretend this is a happy reunion, but underneath that thin layer of sweetness is something bitter and sad. The cake isn't for the staff, it's for the child who never had a birthday party, who never saw candles or balloons, who was raised by white coats and steel walls. And the fact that the staff is shocked by his presence tells us everything. He wasn't loved there, he was feared, and he still is. When Marty slips and calls him John, the immediate correction isn't just a preference, it's a rejection. Homelander doesn't want to be John because John was a boy trapped in a lab, poked and prodded, watched like an animal. John was weak and alone, but Homelander is powerful, Homelander is strong. In that moment, he is protecting himself from vulnerability by clinging to the name that gives him control. He cannot allow anyone, even someone from his past, to speak to him like he is just a man.
I see some new faces, but a lot that I recognize. Frank and assistant director now, Marty. I still remember when they had you wiping out the stool sample containers.
His comments about the workers reveal something more. He notices who's new and who stayed. That small detail shows us that he remembers everything. He hasn't forgotten. He may joke and smile, but behind those eyes is a full mental record of the people who watched him grow like a lab rat. Recognizing Frank and congratulating Marty isn't just polite, it's a form of dominance. He's letting them know he still remembers, still sees them, and still has the power to decide how this reunion goes.
Where's Barbara?
When he asks for Director Barbara, it's not just a casual request. It's a power move, masked in civility. He wants to speak to the people who were truly responsible. He wants to look them in the eyes and see if they flinch. And when he invites them to eat the cake, it's almost theatrical. There's something unsettling in how he pretends to be gracious in a place built on cruelty. Homelander doesn't just remember trauma, he relives it with perfect clarity, down to the smell of burning tears and the sound of his own screams echoing off steel. That memory isn't just burned into his mind, it is his mind. His entire identity is shaped by that moment, and moments like it, when he was not treated as a child, but as an object, a subject, a lab rat in a white-walled cage. Then Homelander stares at the oven door. That door is a relic of his captivity, of the helplessness that still haunts him despite all the power he holds now. And when he invites Frank to play wastepaper basketball, it seems innocent at first, even childish, but in truth, it's a trap, a test, a reenactment of power dynamics reversed. He's walking Frank through a memory, but with new roles. Frank isn't the one outside the oven this time.
Yeah, you were sitting there, and, I was in this oven here, and you made the shot, you did a little fist pump to celebrate, and then you turned up the temperature to see if you could burn my skin.
As Homelander tells his story, we realize how deeply the pain is lodged in his psyche. He doesn't speak of it abstractly. He remembers the textures, the sensations, the agony that didn't just hurt, it branded itself onto his soul.
Even though my skin didn't char, it still really hurt.
The fact that his skin didn't char, but the pain was still real, is symbolic. On the outside, Homelander is indestructible, flawless, a living weapon. But inside, there is unbearable pain that no one sees because it leaves no mark. The scientist never saw it. Frank never saw it. No one cared enough to look.
I was just doing my job.
Frank's flat, unemotional response, "I was just doing my job," is the final insult. It reduces Homelander's trauma to a footnote in someone else's routine.
You know, I had nightmares about that exact moment, and you can't even remember it.
To Frank, it was just another test on another day. To Homelander, it was everything. The moment that broke whatever was left of his trust in humanity. And that's where the horror begins. Homelander threatens and invites Frank to watch him shoot from inside the oven. It's not just revenge, it's performance. He wants Frank to feel what he felt. Not just the heat, but the helplessness, the waiting, the not knowing, and when Frank hesitates,
Get in the oven or your family goes in with you.
Homelander uses the threat of violence against his family because that's what power taught him. Control through fear. That's the only language he was ever taught, and now it's the only one he speaks.
I'm so sorry.
You're sorry? Now?
Frank's apology comes too late and means too little. Homelander isn't looking for words, he's looking for understanding, and when he sees there is none, the decision is already made. Locking the oven is symbolic. It's the sealing of a past that he never got closure for. Turning the heat up is not about punishment, it's about equilibrium, balance, justice, in the twisted arithmetic of trauma. But what truly reveals Homelander's soul is the final moment. He misses the basket. That's everything. For all his power, for all the revenge he takes, for all the control he now exerts, he still misses. He still fails, because none of this makes him whole. None of this fixes what was done to him.
I'd like to apologize. For Frank. Can you forgive me?
Of course.
When Homelander apologizes to Marty for Frank's death and frames it as losing his temper, he is feigning normalcy. He knows how to mimic human behavior, to use soft tones and careful language, but it's always laced with tension. Marty playing along and calling it an accident is trying to survive. He knows he's walking on the edge of a blade, and the wrong word could split him open. Homelander warming up to Marty isn't real warmth. It's the calm before the storm.
You were always one of the kinder ones.
He begins with a compliment, but it's not a compliment without a catch.
Yeah, you called me Squirt, silly.
He brings up the nickname Squirt, something Marty doesn't even remember, but for Homelander, it was unforgettable. The story he tells is almost unbearable in its vulnerability.
Do what boys do. and that would be the only time of day that I would feel anything good.
Homelander admitting to masturbating in the bad room isn't just an anecdote, it's a revelation. It shows how desperately he clung to any sensation of pleasure, any fleeting moment of feeling alive in a place designed to make him feel like an object.
So this one night, I couldn't get finished in time, and you caught me with my pants down. You had a really, really good laugh at me.
That moment of getting caught by Marty wasn't just embarrassing, it was a soul-crushing blow to the only personal space he had. Marty's laugh didn't just ridicule the act, it ridiculed the last thing Homelander had for himself. And this is key, because when someone is stripped of privacy, affection, and dignity from birth, humiliation doesn't fade, it grows, it festers, it becomes a wound that defines how they see others and themselves. Homelander never got closure, never got understanding, never got an apology that mattered, so he seeks control, total control. He recreates the shame he felt, but reverses the roles.
I do want you to jerk off in front of us right now.
He doesn't just want Marty to feel embarrassed, he wants him to feel degraded, powerless, and exposed in the same way that young Homelander once was. The act of forcing Marty to masturbate is about shame, about taking away the last shred of agency Marty has and turning him into the subject of a cruel performance. The taunts, the laughter, the threats, they're not random. They are precisely tuned to echo what Homelander experienced. The difference is that now he is in charge. He is no longer the one behind the glass, being watched and laughed at. Now he is the glass. He is the one who decides who gets to feel safe and who gets to suffer. And when Marty fails, the use of his laser vision to mutilate Marty is not just violence. It's the final act in a ritual of reversal. It's Homelander erasing the symbol of the insult, destroying the part of Marty that hurt him, even if irrationally. And yet, the cruelty doesn't end there.
Please put him out of his misery.
When Barbara enters, her calm demeanor is chilling. She's not shocked. She's not horrified. She's used to this. She treats Marty's suffering as a line item on a chart. Her indifference confirms everything Homelander believes about the people who raised him. They are incapable of caring, incapable of remorse, incapable of seeing him as anything but a weapon. When Homelander finally kills Marty with his boot, crushing his skull in a burst of violence, it is not a mercy killing, even if he uses the word forgiveness. It is a grotesque mimicry of closure. He says the words he always wanted to hear, but delivers them with blood instead of compassion. Homelander's rage is not random. It is targeted, personal, and deeply tied to his sense of identity. Every act of violence is a mirror held up to the people who hurt him, but instead of justice, what he delivers is devastation, because he never learned what healing looks like.
Did you come back here just to torment those people? They were just following orders, Dr. Vogelbaum's, Stan Edgar's, and mine.
Yeah, but they followed them.
This final exchange between Homelander and Barbara inside the bad room is not just a conversation. It's the emotional climax of his return. The room itself is symbolic, the very heart of his suffering. By being there face to face with the woman who represents a system that raised him, Homelander isn't just revisiting his past, he's trying to make sense of it. He's trying, in his own fractured way, to understand why no one ever loved him, why he was treated like a threat instead of a child. Barbara's accusation that he came back out of pettiness is an attempt to reduce everything he's feeling into something small and childish. It's exactly the kind of dismissiveness that shaped his psyche from the beginning. In that single sentence, she shows that she still doesn't understand him. She never did. She still sees him as a failed project who's too emotional, too unstable, too dramatic. And Homelander pushes back, not because he wants revenge in that moment, but because he wants acknowledgement. He wants someone to admit that what was done to him was wrong, that the way they raised him, alone, unloved, under constant surveillance, was a mistake, that treating a child like a weapon isn't science, it's cruelty.
But you lasered her guts open from the inside. You rose in the air with your umbilical cord still attached like some creature out of myth.
And then Barbara tells him the truth. She tells him that from the moment he was born, he was feared, that his surrogate mother died at his hands, and that the others did too, that his first breath was soaked in blood, that his very existence was a horror show. To her, this explains everything, why they never held him, why they watched him through cameras instead of hugging him, why no one ever looked him in the eyes like a person, because they were scared, not of who he might become, but of who he already was. But that explanation doesn't soothe Homelander. It cuts deeper, because it means that even before he had a choice, even before he could speak or understand anything, he was already seen as something other, as a monster, as an accident, as a mistake they couldn't control. And that is what breaks him. Because if that's true, then there was never any chance for love, never any hope for connection. He was condemned from birth. What Barbara sees as justified fear, Homelander sees as betrayal, because no one ever thought to try. No one ever looked past what he could do to see who he might be, and now it's too late. The child is gone, only the product remains. When he asks Barbara why she was never afraid of him, he isn't searching for comfort, he's searching for clarity. All his life he's seen fear in people's eyes, masked as politeness, hidden behind protocol. But Barbara was different. She didn't flinch, didn't tremble, and that makes her unique in his fractured memory. Her answer isn't the kindness he might have hoped for. It's colder than fear. It's control.
You could have broken out of here anytime you wanted. We couldn't have stopped you, but you didn't.
She tells him that he could have left at any time, that the walls of the lab were never strong enough to contain him. But he didn't leave. He chose to stay. Not because he was weak, but because he was engineered to stay. That's the horrifying truth. His leash was never physical. It was psychological.
Vought brought in the best psychologists in the world. He developed the protocol to carefully engineer that need so that you would be obedient.
Vought didn't trap him with walls or chains. They trapped him with love, or the need for it. They didn't need to beat him or cage him. They simply taught him that disappointing his handlers was worse than pain, that their approval was survival. What Barbara reveals is that his most human quality, the yearning to be loved, is not even his own. It was manufactured, installed, like software. She speaks with surgical detachment, revealing that his deepest desires were designed in a boardroom, crafted by psychologists, then reinforced with years of subtle conditioning. It was all artificial. Even the most intimate parts of who he thinks he is, the need to be admired, to be loved, to be good, were tools for control. And that's what breaks something inside him, because if that's true, then he was never free. Every act of violence, every desperate attempt to be adored by the public, every flicker of rage when someone disrespects him, it all traces back to this engineered flaw, a flaw he knows he can never erase.
I'm not human, and neither is my son. And I'm gonna raise him so that he knows it.
When he tells her, "I'm not human, and neither is my son," he isn't just making a statement, he's making a decision, a rejection of everything he was designed to feel. It's his way of trying to destroy the very flaw Barbara exposed. If his humanity was built as a prison, then to be free, he must kill it. And that includes cutting off anything that ties him to it, including his son. Because Ryan represents that same vulnerability, that same programmed need for love and acceptance. And if Homelander is to be more than a puppet, then Ryan too must stop being human. And then comes the most haunting part.
I really do want to share with you why I called this the bad room.
He says he wants to share why he calls it the bad room. He says it slowly, eerily, with a calm that's more disturbing than rage. And behind his eyes is the realization that he's not a man, not a hero, not even a villain in the traditional sense. He's a product of design, raised without love, and taught to crave what he would never receive. This final scene is the ultimate expression of Homelander's transformation as the elevator doors close and Homelander stands drenched in gore. What we see isn't a chaotic massacre. It's methodical. It's personal. The blood isn't random, it's cathartic. Every torn limb, every shattered skull, every splatter on the wall is a message to the people who once looked down at him through glass and saw a test subject instead of a child. And yet, Barbara survives, not because she was spared out of mercy, but because he wants her to feel. He could have killed her quickly, but that would have made her story too easy. Instead, he traps her in the same room where his humanity died, the same room where he was locked, isolated, stripped of love and dignity. And now she's the one who will sit in the silence, surrounded by decay and death, with no one coming to save her. The door is fused shut, not just physically, but symbolically. She is sentenced to the very kind of death they condemned him to in spirit. As the elevator rises and Homelander smiles, the look on his face says everything. He isn't smiling because he's happy. He's smiling because he finally feels complete. It's closure. He destroyed the physical remnants of his trauma, sealed away the architect of his pain, and walked out not as a victim of Vaught's creation, but as the embodiment of it. The final product, perfectly obedient once, now perfectly uncontrolled. That smile is the death of the last human part of Homelander, not because it was taken from him, but because he willingly left it behind, buried in the bad room where it always lived.